Greetings and good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Wolf, and today my brother TericDragon decided to join me for an MLP podcast. Greetings and welcome.
Hey guys, it's more than just a discussion that we decided to do. I actually kind of held him up by his tie and told him that he'll do this or else.
Basically, Teric here convinced me that I should be doing things live and try to get over a few of my hesitations. He tends to have that effect on me.
Yeah. Considering that neither one of us have done this before, I decided that it would be a little bit risky for two of us who have never done a live broadcast to try and do it together and see if we fall flat on our faces or actually do a decent job. So we'll see what happens.
It should be fun. Anyways, we have a couple of subjects that should be interesting to talk about today. First subject we're going to be going over are the keys of Season 4, the overarching storyline. We know that there are 5 keys thus far, and we're going to chat a little bit about what the main 6 have found thus far and what perhaps may happen for the 6th key in a few episodes' time. The second subject...
Go ahead.
The second subject we're going to be going over will be about the writing staff and how we've noticed that over the course of this season, the writers are taking a few more risks here and there, and we're going to discuss on how that could affect the show in the long term.
Yeah. Now, about the first subject, about the keys, just a little bit of a recap for those of us who are not as up on the show as some of the other bronies. Let's just say for us non-bronies here, as far as I understand, these keys are they have something to do with the elements of harmony. Is that correct?
That is the consensus of what most people seem to believe. Everything that has been shown thus far is about the main 6 rediscovering their elements, having their elements being tested and overcoming that struggle.
Okay, yeah. From what I've seen, the one specifically that I saw in Pinky Pride is where Pinky was trying to throw the party for Rainbow Dash, and working so hard to beat Cheese Sandwich that she actually went back on her Pinky promise to make sure that Rainbow Dash would have the most fun ever. It became more about beating Cheese Sandwich than about making a fun party for Rainbow Dash. And so at the point where she realized that, she had that funny little eye flash. Now, if I understand, a lot of the other main 6 have also gone through that little eye flash as well.
Most of the main 6 have gone through that eye flash as well. Twilight is the only one who hasn't thus far.
And it's interesting that they left Twilight Sparkle for last. Makes me wonder what will be her realization, if it will even be her at all.
It is very likely that Twilight is going to be finding the final key. It seems rather obvious that all the main 6 thus far have been rediscovering their elements, so it would seem likely that Twilight would have to rediscover hers.
So then it makes sense for the other 5 of the main 6, because they all have some sort of virtue as their element. You know, Pinky being laughter and optimism, Rarity being generosity, and so on and so forth. If they have a situation where that virtue is tested and they start to go against it for a bit, for example, back in the show about Applejack, where she actually felt it was necessary to tell some white lies in order to, for the good of everyone else, and until she realized that, wait a minute, no, this isn't right after all. So it's always having to do with, it was always virtue based. Now that makes me wonder, if it truly is Twilight, what is the virtue that she would fail at and then realize that she was failing, considering her element is magic?
Well, the whole title of the show is Friendship is Magic. That friendship and magic are intertwined in some way. And way back in the Season 1 opener, it was when she had discovered friendship that she discovered her element. So that seems to be the most likely way of her rediscovering that element. Although how
But
they do that.
you see, I'm not sure I agree with that. No, I see where your point is, that friendship is magic, but the Twilight, um, we've seen that she was Celestia's student, and she knew how to use magic even before she became friends. In fact, her study of magic was what kept her from being friends in a lot of cases previous to that, and which is one of the reasons why Celestia sent her um, down to be with this other group, so that she could actually make friends. And it's interesting how Celestia did that. Um, but her element being magic, you're suggesting that somehow she will lose sight of what friendship is, and that will somehow affect her ability to use magic until she comes to that realization. I'm not sure I buy that.
It seems unlikely they'd set up that kind of scenario without something really major to push her towards that kind of struggle. But
Yeah, I've seen her in the past where she's had trouble with friendships, especially in the Discord episode where he went through and he kind of robbed all of their elements. She actually got angry with all of her friends, and she was saying, okay, good riddance, let's just get through this, I don't want to see you guys anymore. She could still use magic at that point. Now, was her element still operational? Well, we could see that when the first time they tried to get rid of Discord, when they weren't together as friends, clearly that didn't work, and he just shrugged it off. So that does tend to support your theory, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's what they're planning on doing. There's got to be some other way. I mean, if her element is magic, my assumption would be that somehow um, somehow her magic either is decreased or is taken away, um, and then at first she sees that as a benefit, because that's what a lot of these characters have been going through, is going against their element, their virtue, uh, uh, their virtue, mind you, and then actually going down that path and feeling like that's the right thing to do for a time until they come to that realization. So my thought is that somehow Twilight is going to either have her magic removed or decreased through her own actions, or through the actions of someone else, and she's going to go down that path for a while thinking that's the right way to go, until she comes to the realization that no, this isn't right.
seems very likely it would end up being that way. That's actually some very intriguing thoughts you have.
But see, does that have to be linked with friendship? I don't think so.
I suppose we'll have to wait and see. Personally, I think that the whole point of the element of magic is supposed to be intertwined with friendship, but I can see the way you describe it. That could happen too. That could make sense.
Headcanon. No, not headcanon. This is all just predictive. Just thinking about what could possibly be. Now, on the other hand, you mentioned before that it may not even be Twilight after all.
I've put together a couple of videos during Season 4 thus far that suggest the possibility that the sixth key will not be found by Twilight, but could in fact be found by Spike instead. Now,
That's really intriguing, because personally I love the character of Spike. I think Spike is a great little character. He's somewhat underused at times, and other times he's used fairly well. But how would Spike go about discovering, or shall I say rediscovering, that key?
I can think of a couple possibilities, but before I get into that, the initial reason why I thought Spike would be the one who would find a key is the fact that when Celestia, in the Season 4 opener, Celestia says that she doesn't know where those keys are, but she tells Twilight that she won't be finding them alone. And the very next scene, it shows the rest of the main six and Spike.
Ah.
So that's the subtle hint that I'm getting, that pointing at those particular 6 characters to help find the keys.
I
I don't
see.
know whether
So
that's going to happen, but that's just the subtle hint I got.
okay, so a bit of foreshadowing there, and you feel like the writers may stick with that bit of foreshadowing scene to say that all of these 6 keys are there to assist Twilight but won't involve Twilight directly.
Now, you see, there's a little bit more to it than that. I can see a couple of possibilities how Spike could find a key. Now, first off, if he ends up finding a key on his own, like the rest of the main 6, they found their keys by teaching someone else about their element. And usually it's a one-shot character. In the case of Spitfire, she was a recurring character, but the rest of them have been one-shot characters thus far. Now, if Spike is the one who ends up finding a key, they would probably introduce another one-shot character. I could see possibilities with them using some other recurring character where Spike is teaching someone about something important, but the second possibility I can see is that Twilight and Spike are involved in finding a key. Whether
Together.
it's Twilight teaching Spike or Spike teaching Twilight, because they've had episodes in the past where they've been teaching each other and uplifting each other, I could see that happening very easily. That if Twilight is supposed to find the key, that Twilight is the one who ends up teaching Spike about something important in that sense. Or if Spike is the one who ends up finding the key, that Spike is the one who steps up and shows Twilight that she needs to take a look around and think about things a little more differently, much like the rest of the main 6 did.
So then if we go there, let's drill down a little further and be specific. If it turns out that Spike is indeed the one who discovers the 6th key, what is Spike's virtue? I have an idea on that, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Right. This is another video that I talked about, another video that I put together several weeks back, mentioning a possible 7th element of harmony. I don't know whether you've seen that video of mine. However, I came up with this idea that Spike, perhaps more than any other character in the show, perhaps, is learning about sacrifice. And I was talking about how, in the case of generosity, Rarity's element, that there is a distinct difference between generosity and sacrifice. Because Rarity is very generous with what she has, but she has a lot more. She gives out gems to other people without much thought and wants to spread beauty and cheer where she goes, but she always has a lot more back at home. She can find so much more so easily. She's not really giving up quite that much. In the case of Spike, however, there have been moments in the series where he has so very little to begin with, and he gets something that he really treasures. The episode Secret of My Excess comes to mind, but you may not have seen that one.
Is that the one where Rarity got the gem from him?
Yes, that is the one. He has this very rare fire ruby that he's been aging for months. He's intending to use it as his own birthday present until Rarity sees it. And at first, Rarity is really trying not to say anything about it, but she knows that it's such a priceless gem, and Spike decides that he should give it to her because he knows that she would want it so much. And in that moment, he is sacrificing a lot, a whole lot. And there are many other moments throughout the series, maybe not quite as easy to see, but where Spike is giving of himself and taking all the rap from everything else, how life is treating him, for lack of a better word, as a punching bag at times. And yet he still keeps going. He's still the #1 assistant. He still does everything that anyone really needs of him. He's still a baby dragon, and there are plenty of moments where he acts his age, but perhaps more than any other character, I think he is learning more about sacrifice. And there is that possibility that that could be a seventh element of harmony. I'm sure there are plenty of people who can disagree with me on that, but that's just the way I feel.
Let me take a tangent to that. Your point about sacrifice does make a lot of sense, and now that you've explained it to me, yes, I do remember listening to that video. I was at work at the time, and I was just listening to it. I wasn't actually watching. Might I suggest that Spike's virtue is not so much sacrifice as service? And let me explain that. He, more than any other of the pets, you see a lot of the ponies that have their own pets.
I don't really consider Spike to be a pet, though. I consider him more like a younger brother.
Yeah, and see, and that's what I'm getting at. See, Spike is he dedicates himself to service, mostly to Twilight, but not just to her, to a lot of other folks as well. He's always served as the mailman, essentially, for lack of a better word, and he's always working on cleaning up around Twilight's house, as the reshelving the books and things like that, and cleaning up, and he always has a number of tasks to do. Now, does he complain about those tasks? Yeah, from time to time, yes, you do hear him complain. However, he does those things, and he doesn't become bitter or disgruntled about the service that he has to do. He does it mostly with a cheerful heart. And he does that because of the love, let's say. The love that he has for Twilight and for the others as well. I mean, especially Rarity. I'd call that more infatuation. But it drives him to serve, and in that sense, Spike is an example to the rest of us of selfless service, because he, like you say, he sacrifices. But I think it's a step further than that. Not only does he sacrifice, but he also gives of his time, gives of his strength, gives of his effort, and not just his not just what he has, but what he is. He gives in service to others, and so I think that is a more complete explanation of Spike's virtue, if he indeed has one.
Even if they don't make it into an element of harmony, that is still a very good virtue to have.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you don't mind me waxing religious just a moment here, most any church you go to, Christian or otherwise, there is an emphasis on service to others, and selfless service. Let's put it that way. I think Spike exemplifies that very well.
Indeed, he does. So, we may not know just yet what the sixth key is going to involve and who it may involve, but I think that these are some rather intriguing ideas about the direction this show could take, and I honestly would like to see a little more focus on Spike, show that he really is important to the group. Whether or not that actually happens with the sixth key, maybe, maybe not.
It makes me wonder, though, did the writers originally intend Spike to become such a major supporting character? Let's put it that way. Clearly, I mean, I don't think he was intended to be a main character, but I think he was intended to be a supporting character but over time, as the show has developed, he has taken on such a life of his own that it makes me wonder if he is kind of becoming one of the main characters just by default. Mm-hmm. Did the writers intend that? I don't know.
Well, back during season 1, I can only think of one episode where he was the main focus. Now, during season 2, he was given more. At least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. And during season 3, he was also given at least 2 episodes.
So, is that an increasing trend? I don't know. Or is that just happenstance?
Now, during season 4, I believe that he is supposed to have 3 episodes that make him the main focus.
But we haven't seen any of those yet.
I've seen one.
Ah.
Power Ponies was early on in the series where
that's right.
The main 6 got turned into superheroes, and Spike.
That's right. I did see that one.
And he was the main focus of that story, even though it was a lot of fan pandering throughout the rest of the episode, and seeing the main 6 just being all...
Probably my favorite part of that whole episode is all of them getting, freaking out as they're getting sucked into the book, and then Pinkie Pie just goes, hop, hop, whee, and jumps right in.
Of course.
Of course. At any rate, so you feel that Spike is going to get the limelight at least a couple more times this season. That would suggest that the writers are A, intending him to become more of a main character, or B, listening to the fans who really like him.
Would be interesting to see. Really would. Alrighty. Now, our second subject that we wanted to get into this evening, how the writers are slowly and steadily taking more risks as the show progresses, or at least that's what you've noticed. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Going back to the first season, if you think about the subject matter that they would write about, they were getting into some what I'd say stock stories. Now, did they make those stories sound flat? No, absolutely not. They were trying to do their best with what they had, but were they taking risks? And my answer would be not so much. They were using safe storylines, safe plot lines, and they were going in and doing something that was exciting, that was fun, but it really fit into the MLP world. Now, contrast that with Season 4, when we get things like the superhero episode that we just talked about, or we get into the Party of One, or we get into a rapping Pinkie Pie. I personally don't think things like that would ever have appeared in Season 1. Had they
Party
appeared,
of One actually was in Season 1.
What do you mean, Appaloosa?
Party of One?
I'm sorry, not Party of One. I mean Pinkie Pride.
Pinkie Pride. That's
sorry.
what you're talking about.
That's what I meant, yes. Now, had they introduced those kinds of things in Season 1, I think it would have made a big difference, because I think Season 1 is where they really captured their audience, where they really reached out. And remember, this show originally was intended as a show for young girls, preteen and young teen girls. That was the original intent of the show. Now, it expanded a lot beyond that, as we can clearly see. But their writing in the first season centered around that demographic. Had they introduced things like a rapping Pinkie Pie, or superhero main 6, or things, some of the crazy stuff that we have seen in Season 4, they would likely have alienated their target audience. Would they have attracted the brony community by doing those things in Season 1? I don't know. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But I can see, now that they have already established that audience, and the audience has expanded leaps and bounds beyond what they had originally intended, I think they're taking more risks. They're using writing that appeals to a wider audience, and they're doing things that are, I would say are kind of silly but fun, and don't necessarily fit into the MLP world, but they're doing it because it's fun for the audience, and frankly, it's probably fun for the writers as well.
What elements would you say would not necessarily fit into the MLP world? Can you expand on that?
Well, rapping for one.
Hmm.
Um, you know, now granted there is vinyl scratch. We do see that, and we see a lot. We see the bass cannon. Now, the bass cannon, that's a vinyl scratch thing, but I don't know if that was actually part of the actual
That
MLP.
wasn't part of the show, not the bass cannon. The
Okay,
party
all right,
cannon was part of the show, yes, and that was in season 2.
all right. So, and when did they introduce the party cannon? I don't even know.
Oh, that was during Sweet and Elite, and they brought it back at the end of season 2 during Canterlot Wedding.
Right, right. So it was introduced. It wasn't even introduced in season 1. It was in season 2. Is that
I,
correct?
yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So again, the party cannon, another one of those kind of risky things. And there. I'm going to teach you a new word, anachronism. Do you know that word?
I've probably heard it somewhere, but I can't place where.
All right. The word anachronism is a literary term. It essentially means you are putting something into a story that doesn't fit into that time period. It seems like if you look at season 1, you see a lot of there's magic, and there is the kind of colonial style cottages, and it's kind of a whimsical colorful type of world that has some machinery like trains, but mostly the machinery itself is absent, um, and because they depend a lot more on magic than on technology. And so you'll see things like um, Rarity, when she sews her dresses. She uses some of the older style spinning sewing machines, or she sews it by hand or by magic, shall we say. But you don't see a lot of the more modern technology in that world. And so when you start adding some of this more modern technology, for example, a turntable, that is it. That's what's called an anachronism, because they're bringing something from a different time period, a different setting, and putting it into where it doesn't fit. However, they have done the writing in such a way that it doesn't feel awkward. It feels fun. It's a literary device that, if used properly, can enhance the story. I think what they're doing here is they are putting in anachronisms into the MLP world, and I think the rate at which they are putting these into the world is accelerating. That's what I mean when they're taking more risks.
Interesting. I suppose that some people are having a little bit of a harder time justifying why certain technological advances actually exist in the world, but I can tell that the MLP staff are having fun with what they've done thus far, and I don't think they've broken anything yet. They haven't gone to the point of suspending your disbelief.
And I think that goes right along with what I was saying. Putting an anachronism into a story world is not something you want to rely on, because if it's done too much, then, like you say, it destroys that suspension of disbelief. But done right, with the proper writing around that anachronism, it can work. On the other hand, if you introduce it suddenly, for example, this rap session that Pinkie Pie had, that came out of nowhere. It was completely out of the blue and unexpected, but it was fun, and it was not so over the top that it made you feel like, wait a minute, am I watching a completely different cartoon here? It was Pinkie Pie. And so we have seen Pinkie Pie do all of this crazy, silly stuff before, and so getting a rap session out of Pinkie Pie, it's just, it's the next level higher, but it's not unexpected.
True enough. Oh, goodness. I still got to find ways to get you to actually start watching more episodes of the show so you can keep up on all of these things, though.
Well, I live vicariously through you in the MLP world. Now, I have to admit that I do go and I watch your videos whenever you get a new video that comes out. I do try and take the time to listen to it. Now, sometimes I'm at work when that happens, and so I have to listen and not watch. But I'm trying to keep abreast of everything that's going on, keeping track of your analysis and your episode reviews, which is why I know a few more things about the episodes that I haven't seen, is because of your videos.
You'd still enjoy the episodes a lot more if you actually went into them not knowing what to expect. You're listening to my reviews and you're kind of getting a heads up. Oh, there's this section where Pinkie Pie is rapping in front of everyone and it comes out of nowhere.
Indeed.
Now, when I watched that for the first time, I was laughing hysterically. Oh, wow, I had no idea that was coming, and they did it so well. And like I had mentioned before, it reminded me so much of, my other brother. I'm not going to mention names, but living in my other brother's room in the early 90s, and that is exactly the kind of music he would listen to all the time, and the
Constantly,
culture that he got into, and it was so funny watching Pinkie Pie doing those things.
So you know that dates us.
Yeah, I know that dates us.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Considering, I don't know, how old were you in the early 90s? Was you 8 or 9?
Oh goodness.
Yeah, and I was a teenager.
Hmm.
And so, that kind of dates us, because I bet there's a good portion of your audience that was either not even born at that point or were just little kids and they don't even remember that time.
True enough. I know that the bulk of my audience are high schoolers and 20-something college kids, but I do get people even younger or even much older than that.
So you're pandering to a bunch of little kiddos. Is that what you're telling me?
They're only little kids compared to us. I don't see them that way. I see them as adults. But thinking about how much older we are, yeah, I suppose you can see it that way.
You're making me feel old. I'm not that old yet. Come on.
We'll see. All right. What else have we got on the agenda?
No, you see, now I've been listening. Staying on that present subject, I've been listening. When you do um, conversations with some of the other reviewers, or you have that moment with Dr. Wolf type of videos, I listen to the voices of some of these people that come in and talk to you. And I'd have to agree, the majority of the ones that have come and talked to you, they sound like either teenagers or 20-somethings, except Ann Y. Pony. He sounds like a lot older. I'm not exactly sure how old he is. I'd say maybe late 20s, early 30s. Well, I don't know. Do you know him any better?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah, he seems like he's older. But the other ones, they all seem younger. Now, for those of you listening, forgive me if I'm mistaken here. Maybe I'm in the wrong area. I'm this 4-year-old dragon that doesn't belong in this crowd.
Well, I think you fit in well enough because you can talk about this subject pretty well considering you haven't seen the majority of the show just yet. You just happen to listen to a lot of the content I produce.
Well, that's part of it, yes. And plus I have 3 children that enjoy watching the show. And most of the time they come to me and they say, well, this is what happened and this is what happened, and so, I don't always have to watch the episodes. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of the Brony community out there that are listening to this right now and saying, foul, what is he doing? He needs to watch the show. Come on. Now, I get a lot, I get that. I've had not just you, Dr. Wolf, but I've had other Bronies come and tell me that I need to watch the show more. I need to get into the show more. Come to join the Brony fandom and all that kind of thing. And so there is a pull there. Yeah, I'll admit.
You just need more time. You keep yourself way too busy these days for obvious reasons.
Well, considering I've got a wife and 4 kids and a full-time job, and I'm also a choir director and a member of another professional choir, that kind of limits time.
Mm-hmm. And yet you still get up way early in the morning to do your video games.
Not so much anymore.
No, not so much.
I used to get up at 4:30 every morning. Yes, It's true. 4:30 in the morning every day. I did that for years, guys. And every now and then I still do that. However, I have found that when my alarm goes off at 4:30 these days, I am actually feeling more tired than I used to, and I usually snooze until about 5. Okay, big difference, 30 minutes. But you know what? It makes a big difference to me. I'm not getting up as early as I used to, so I'm becoming this old, decrepit man that can't get up in the morning. Is that it? No. But,
not even close.
No, not even close. But, yeah, I'm a morning person. I've always gotten up early in the morning, and to be honest, with all of the other things that I have going on in my life, that's the time that I have my personal time. And so, yeah, that's the time I get up, I read, and I play games.
Question. I don't know if you've been looking at the comments that people have been writing. I don't know if I've sent you that link yet, but I want to send you this link. Take a look at what people are writing.
Link me. What are people writing?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. You may have to mute the sound when you actually get to it, because we're still on live here.
Oh, you got people commenting already.
Oh, yeah. They've been commenting for a while.
Oh, my goodness. Because there's nobody commenting in this group chat, so I thought nobody was listening.
The group chat is just between us. I figured that out about partway through the live stream, and I went back to the YouTube page. Oh, look at there's all this conversation going on.
Silly me. I haven't been paying attention. So, let's see. I'm not seeing any comments here. It says there are 47 people watching right now. I'm not seeing any of the comments. Maybe I'm just incompetent. Am I incompetent?
It should be to the right of the video.
Oh, okay, there we go. See, I told you I was incompetent. There it is. Let me take a look. Yeah, my wife is telling me that I'm incompetent.
Uh-huh. You got all these people saying hello. And we've got, one person is asking, is this the Q&A?
No, it's not. It's not necessarily the Q&A, although if there are pertinent questions that come up in the chat, we will try to answer them.
I'm sure we could take some time to do that. See what people come up with. This is actually kind of fun. Although there is a bit of a delay on what we're talking about and what they can hear. So we'll see. Now, Teric.
Yes.
Why was it that you had convinced me to do this live when we had never attempted anything like this before?
All right. Well, we were talking before we started the live stream. We were just chatting back and forth, planning on what we were going to discuss for this evening's podcast. And Dr. Wolf was going on the assumption that we were just going to record it so that he could take it back and edit it. If there was anything mistaken or embarrassing in there, he would edit that out and then post it. And I said, well, why not just do it live? And he said, we'll do it live. What will happen if people come into the chat room and they start trolling, or people start taking over the chats, and things get out of hand. And I say, okay, well, this is something that neither you nor I have ever done before. This is something that we're not really sure how to do on Google Hangouts. Let's see what happens. And I said, and I told him the line, "Let's live it up, Grandpa," which is it's a line from one of the stories that I've written. And so he decided that, okay, let's throw caution to the wind and go ahead and do this live. And here we are.
I've got a question here for you. Someone wants to know, hey, Teric, what do you do in your fandom?
You're referring to the furry fandom.
I assume that's what they want to know, yeah.
Yes. What do I do in the fandom? Well, I am an amateur author. I have a number of short stories that I've written. I'm also an amateur artist. If you want to see some of the art that I've done, you can go over to the furaffinity.net website and look for me. I am simply Teric, T-E-R-I-C, and I've got all of my art posted out there if you want to take a look. Now, let me qualify that. I am nowhere near as good as a lot of these other authors or artists out there. Yeah, my wife mentions that my son is actually quite good, and I have to admit he's much better than I ever was. Um,
I still need to convince him to do some artwork for a couple of my videos too.
Indeed. He actually did do a couple of, he did do some artwork for your videos. Did I ever send those to you?
I don't know. He put together one image of Dr. Wolf that was colored and one image of Tarek that was colored, but I don't know if I saw anything else.
He actually put together several images of the two of us talking together from different angles.
I don't know if
Uh,
that had that gotten fully colored yet.
you know what? I don't know. I'll have to go back and ask him.
Huh?
Someone's asking when your birthday is.
Oh goodness. My birthday is in May. Still more than a month away. I'll leave it
But
at
that's
that.
next month.
Yeah, I know. It's still more than a month away, though. I'll leave it at that.
Yep. So I'm looking at. Oh my gosh! Someone asked the question. I see from Molly Evans. Dr. Wolf, what is your favorite thing about all main six? Okay, no, I read the question wrong. Never mind. I thought she was asking who is the best pony out of the main six. Now, every time someone asks that question, it starts World War III, and I have to duck and cover.
Oh, everybody has their favorite, and it's perfectly fine for everybody to have their favorites. It's when people say, who is best pony? That's what starts going back and forth, and everybody saying, no, no, you're wrong, kind of thing.
Well, shall we start World War III or just express our own opinions?
Oh, I have enough of my own opinion, but I don't have a best pony because I like all the main six for many different reasons. I
That's
understand
not
that
what you
certain.
told me.
Oh, hold on a second. I do have personal favorites that relate very much to me. I've already said that I relate the most to Fluttershy and Twilight and Applejack of the main six. But even though I don't relate quite as much to, say, Rarity and Rainbow Dash, I relate somewhat to Pinkie Pie, but not so much to Rarity and Rainbow Dash. I still enjoy their characters. I thoroughly enjoy their characters. They're written so well. Been given so much depth and a lot of really great stories. And the fact that these characters can interact with each other so well throughout all these different seasons and these different stories, that they're still fun even near the end of season 4. I still expect them to be fun for a long time yet.
Now, see, that's a really safe answer coming from a doctor.
Uh-huh. That's what I do.
See, that's not what you told me. What you
Oh,
told me, you did the impression that I got from you, and please correct me if I'm wrong,
I may
is
correct a little bit, but go ahead.
that you've always told me that you thought Fluttershy was the best pony.
No, no, no.
Even when
Not
we
best.
went,
Not
even
best.
when we went to the PonyCon, to the BronyCon in Salt Lake City, then they had that forum where they actually let World War III get loose, and they said, "Okay, everybody, let's talk about who's best pony," and everybody scream your opinions as why, and they split us all into 6 groups. Which group did you go into?
I
You
went
went.
to the group with my personal favorite. If I only had to pick one, then yes, I would go with
Okay,
Fluttershy because I think that just a little bit more than Twilight and Applejack, I relate to Fluttershy just that little bit more.
okay, the truth comes out.
Mhm.
Now, I bet you guys are all asking if I was there, what group did I stand in?
Oh, I already know that. Oh,
Well,
goodness.
of course you were there.
Uh-huh.
If the chat were, if it wasn't a delay, then I'd ask everybody to guess. But no, I'll go ahead and tell you. I was standing in the Pinkie Pie group. Now, is that so much of a surprise? Maybe, maybe not. Um, and they asked why. They asked each group why we feel that our choice was best pony, and the reasons that I gave is A. Pinkie Pie knows no fear. She is not afraid of anything. B. She is faster than Rainbow Dash. C. She breaks the laws of physics. D. She can foretell the future. That's pretty compelling.
I'd say that it's because she's just really, really fun and tends to make me laugh more than the other characters, but go with what you know.
Yeah, and to be honest, the reason I went with Pinkie Pie in the first place is just because she's silly and crazy and fun, and and that's the whole reason. Now, I have to admit, Doc, after watching your videos and going through the reviews and your analysis of all the different characters, I have to say that I am leaning toward Applejack as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because going back to your analysis, and I look back at, I subscribe to your headcanon that her parents are indeed passed on, and that she was the one who was doing most of the raising of Sweetie Belle.
No, no, no.
Um,
Apple Bloom. Apple Bloom.
Sorry, not Sweetie Belle, Apple Bloom. Yes, see, furry, not a brony. Okay,
Right.
go ahead and lynch me, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she was doing the one that was doing most of the raising of Apple Bloom, and in addition to that, her element being honesty, or as I would an alternative name is integrity. Um, I have gained a lot of respect for Applejack, not because of I still like the Pinkie Pie fun and silliness, but when you want a character that has a lot of depth and a lot of interesting facets to her, I'm leaning toward Applejack.
Applejack tends to be, out of all the main six, the one that is least favorited. Now, when I say that, when you put together the lists of people who vote for their favorites, that Applejack tends to be number 7, number 8 out of that list as according to popularity. I personally wish that she was higher on that list because there's a lot more to her than what a lot of people have given her. But she tends to lag a little bit behind the other ponies. I don't know whether that's going to be changing in the future. I really hope it does at some point, but we'll see.
Yeah. And it looks like in the chat we have several people calling for my public lynching.
Isn't that fun?
Uh, uh, well, okay, I'd like to put this forth. I'm normally a very chill kind of guy, and I'm, really calm and stuff. But I am a dragon, and you guys are gonna have a really hard time trying to lynch a dragon.
Well, if they tried to burn you at the stake, would you actually burn?
Probably not. And lynching would the whole thing about lynching, it requires uh, um, first of all, the inability to defy gravity, and then also the ability to find some sort of a rope that would actually carry your weight and snap your neck and that kind of thing. I don't think any of those are going to work.
I'm sure people will get creative.
Yes, indeed.
All righty. Oh, do we have any other questions going on in here? Let me see.
It says, Dr. Wolf and Tarek, what do you have in common, from Molly Evans?
What do we have in common? Oh, goodness, we're brothers. We have a lot in common.
And what he means is literally blood brothers in real life.
Uh-huh, right. Oh, goodness. We both grew up playing video games. Lots and lots of video games. And Tarek showed me a lot of interesting games to get into. I'm sure that I have him to thank for particular genres that I started really enjoying.
Oh, like
goodness.
what?
Oh, well, let me think. I believe that you were the one who got me interested into more fantasy genres because that's what you would do with your friends every time you guys came over.
Yes, that's true. Oh, sorry, you asked me not to do that. Sorry.
That's okay. What else do you think is common between us?
Well, we have some musical training. Now, you have been a singer. That's something that you've alluded to, and you've actually done some singing on some of your videos, but you haven't really come out and said, I have been trained as a singer. The truth is, yes, you have. Another thing that is a little bit of roasting time. Dr. Wolf has also been on stage, acting in drama and plays and musicals.
It's been a long time since I did any of that, but yeah.
It is true. You cannot deny it. And you could do it again. Another thing that we have in common is there it is. Oblivious Tanya says World of Warcraft. Yes, we did play World of Warcraft together for a while.
Mm. It took
And
us a while to actually get on the same server, though.
yeah, it took us a little while. Yes, Jason Campbell, Dr. Wolf is a gamer, or at least he was. Now you're not doing games so much anymore now that you've started doing these YouTube videos.
No, I much prefer to spend my time making content rather than spending my time playing the next new game. I mean, even before I started making content, I was limiting myself to getting 1, maybe 2 new games a year. It's just that I would pick games that I would play endlessly. I would make sure that whatever I bought, I could spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours on before I get bored with it.
Yeah. I enjoyed those kinds of games too. I have to admit I put more than 200 hours into Skyrim. Which is kind of funny because Skyrim, one of the main points of that game is you are killing dragons.
Mm-hmm.
How ironic. At any rate. Next question. Wesley M. 134 says, Dr. Wolf Tarek got a favorite soda, root beer drink? What do you say, Doc?
If it was root beer, then I'd say one of those bottles of IBC. Those are really good.
Oh, you're killing me. Woo! Now, that is some of the most heavenly stuff in the world, is the IBC root beer, right chilled right out of the bottle. That is wonderful stuff. Okay?
Indeed.
Now, I'm big on root beer myself, but I also enjoy black cherry soda. I'm not big into like Coca-Cola or Dr. Pepper, those kinds of things. Yeah, probably because caffeine just isn't my style.
And that's okay.
People keep asking, who is your favorite princess?
My favorite princess? Oh, goodness. We haven't seen enough of the majority of the princesses. We haven't seen enough stories dedicated to them. I mean, aside from Twilight, how many stories have we been given the chance to know more about Celestia or Luna or Cadence for that matter? I'd like to see each of them get more opportunities to show who they really are, so I'd get an idea, hey, how much do I really enjoy these characters? Because right now they're mostly in the background. Right now I'd say that my favorite princess is Twilight Sparkle because I know the most about her. I'd like to see more of Luna, I'd like to see more of Celestia, and I could enjoy seeing more of Cadence too. It's just I haven't been given that many opportunities to know who they really are. So we'll see whether that changes in the future, but for right now I'd say Twilight is my favorite.
All right. I have to go. I do enjoy Twilight myself, considering she's one of the main 6, and she's really one of the big focuses of the series. But I have to say that I am intrigued by Luna. And I'll explain that. The whole thing is, there's a lot of headcanon going on, and the writers have never really come out and explicitly said that they haven't come out and explicitly talked about how Luna and Celestia in the first place were working together, but somehow Luna fell out of grace or turned to the dark side or did something where she had to be banished to the moon and she became Nightmare Moon. And then, of course, we see her only after her banishment comes to an end, and she wreaks havoc as a Nightmare Moon, and until the main 6 recover the elements of harmony and bring her back to being Luna. The thing that intrigues me about Luna is the fact that she works with the night, and not the fact that she's always in darkness, but it's to see the development that she's going through. When she was first brought back from being Nightmare Moon, she seemed to be this small, fragile, almost weak-looking pony. This little alicorn. I mean, you look in the pilot of the whole series. You see when she first is released from being Nightmare Moon, her relative size to Celestia is quite small. But then you see over time, now when I look at her next to Celestia, the two of them are the same size.
Pretty close.
Luna has been going through some sort of growing process, and I mean, time and again, I mean, you're not seeing it all that much because the show focuses more on the main six. But when the moments that you do see Luna, you see in her this quiet wisdom that is not overbearing, that's not presumptuous, but when she does speak, when she does choose to speak or act, she always does so with wisdom. At least in the more recent episodes where I have seen her. And I have a lot of respect for that. Now, obviously, you can kind of say the same thing about Celestia, but it seems to me like that she's the more motherly, for lack of a better word. She has that wisdom there, but she's always expressing it. She's always looking for these teaching moments for Twilight and the other of the main six. Luna is a lot more reserved, and that really speaks to me a lot more.
You really need to watch the episodes where she does become more of the main focus. I don't know if you've seen Luna Eclipse from season 2. That's the one that has the most screen time with Luna, but you learn a lot about who she is and what she's trying to get out of life. And then you have 2 episodes where she's actually visiting other characters in their dreams. And that's actually rather interesting, the kind of lessons that she teaches there, too.
Yeah, I remember there was a recent episode where she came and visited them in their dreams.
It's Sweetie Belle, and that was during For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils.
That's right. That's one episode I have not seen. I'd like to see that one.
Once again, gather your kids. Make it happen.
Indeed. Boy, these questions are just flying by faster than we can keep up with them. So, I have to apologize, guys. We can't get to all of your questions. We'll try and grab them where we can. Let's see. From Dante the Hedgewolf to Dr. Wolf and TericDragon, what game characters in any games do we like?
Oh, goodness. Game characters? Oh. What would come to mind first? Oh. How about Deckard Cain?
Why do you say Deckard Cain?
I've actually been quoting him in more of my recent videos.
I did pick up on that. Stay a while and listen.
Stay a while and listen.
Yes, no, you've got to say it in the right accent.
Oh, goodness. He's just a very memorable character throughout Diablo 2. I don't know why I was thinking about him recently, but he just tends to stay with you, even in your subconscious. I don't know what about him in particular that I'd like to say, but he's, in some ways, kind of what Dr. Wolf is trying to represent. That calm and welcoming and wise atmosphere. That he has so much to give if you're just willing to stay a while and listen.
Indeed. He's not the active character. Obviously, he's not the main character. In fact, he's most of the time just standing around in the safe places, offering words of wisdom. And of course, he serves to advance the story. But it's interesting. It's not just the wisdom, but the knowledge, because he was originally one of the Haradrim. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's the last of the Haradrim, according to the Diablo lore, and therefore he knows a lot of the lore of the Haradrim and the war between the angels and the devils and those kinds of things. And so he is in a unique position to offer that kind of wisdom to the main character. And so obviously he was created as by Blizzard as a character to advance the story and to be like kind of the mentor character to the player. But I think what Blizzard did in Diablo 2, they advanced that pretty well. Now in Diablo 3, they continued on with that. I think. I have to admit it surprised me, and I don't want to give anybody spoilers if you haven't played Diablo 3.
Avoid
but
that, yeah.
Do you want me to avoid that?
Avoid that.
Okay, I won't say it then. But I think they did a better job with Deckard Cain in Diablo 2 than they did in Diablo 3.
I can agree with that.
Now, before I answer my side of the question, Oblivious Tanya, video games brainwash our kids. Okay, now, Tanya, I have to admit, I am a professional game developer. That's what I do for my job. And I agree with you in part. And, I could go on to a whole tirade about that, but I'm not going to do that. I am going to put forth that there are some video games that are good, and there are some video games, in fact, there are quite a few video games that are just not worth playing at all. They're just mindless. And I wouldn't say that they brainwash our kids. What I say is that they brain flush our kids. There's a difference. But anyway, let me go back to the original question. Are there any game characters that we like or that are inspiring to us? Now, that's a tough question, because as a professional game developer, I have been exposed to a very wide range of games with a lot of different characters. And so I'm inclined to either say Link from Zelda, or Zelda herself, or a character from one of the Final Fantasy series. For example, Red 13 from Final Fantasy VII. Now, why do I like those characters? I have to go back to a lot of the similar reasons why I like Luna. I like the wisdom in those characters. I like how Link, and he's more of the action-y type, and you don't really see a lot of wisdom coming from him, but you see strength and determination from him as a hero character. But if you go to someone like Red 13 from Final Fantasy VII, the first time you see him, the player is led to believe that he's just this ferocious monster, and you shouldn't let him out of the cage because he's going to come and tear you apart. But the truth is, he's intelligent, he talks, and as soon as he gets out of the cage, he says, okay, I'm going to come and help you now. And there is a lot of interesting wisdom that comes from Red 13, and the lore that he has behind him, and the almost tribal outlook that he has, the culture that he has with him, that it's and his desire to reestablish and repopulate his own species. It makes him a very compelling character to me.
Well spoken, sir.
That? Oh my gosh! Did you really mean to do that?
Well,
did you really mean you really meant to quote The Princess Bride there?
Oh, I just like saying such lines. You know that. I have certain lines that I tend to do that you have far more.
Well, yes, and that's another thing that we have in common. Going back to another previous question, is the two of us, out of all of the people in our family, the two of us have this uncanny ability to mentally record audio. So that when we watch a movie, we can see it just maybe once or twice, and then we can start quoting it. And if we see it enough times, then we can pretty much remember the whole movie. And so it ends up getting into our conversations. We end up dropping little quotes, movie quotes here and there, and a lot of times we get into games where we're just throwing quotes back and forth and trying to identify the movies. I must admit, he's better at it than I am. I don't think I have stumped him yet.
Oh, you have stumped me every now and then. It's just usually with films that I've only seen once or twice in my lifetime.
Yeah. All right. Now, and one of the questions that I saw going back earlier is, what would be our opinion of any of the Generation 1 villains being reintroduced into MLP?
Well,
Now, I'm going to
how
have
much
to let
do
you
you
take that
know
one.
about how much do you know about Generation 1?
Zero.
I know ever so slightly more than zero, but pretty close to just zero. I have not sat down and watched G1 yet. It's possible that somewhere way down the line, months from now, I might be convinced to sit down and watch a few of those and do a first impressions video. I know that at least a few people would enjoy that. I,
Yeah.
as far as the villains go, I've known little bits here and there just from what I've seen of other people's reviews. I know there was this evil centaur like character in the original pilot episodes that actually had more of an 80s villain vibe to him than most every other villain in that series, but I could see some possibilities with certain returning villains from G1. I'd probably have to actually sit down and watch the show for a while first and get an idea about what exactly they could do if they were introduced to G4. But I could see possibilities with that. I don't
Yeah.
know if that'll ever happen.
There's always possibilities, but you got to realize it's a completely different writing staff. There might be copyright issues, but then it's still Hasbro. So what are you going to do? We're going to have to start winding this down a little bit, but I wanted to get into two questions at the same time. Sasami-chan, I hope I pronounced that right, says, would you ever make or pass on game ideas from us normal YouTubers? The other one is, let's see, Times Minion. Again, what games do you develop? Now, to answer the first question, I work for a third-party developer. I don't work for one of the big development houses. So the answer to a game idea from a normal YouTuber most likely would probably go unheeded. Now, the reason that's not because those ideas are not good, but it's because we are a third-party developer and we work for the bigger companies who actually come to us and say, you build this kind of game. So a lot of our own ideas really don't get implemented unless we have some of our own money to do so. Now, the kind of games that we develop is going right along with that. We develop the games that the big companies come to us and say, we want you to build. For example, we were just working with Disney in doing their Infinity project, which was their answer to Skylanders. And what I led the team that helped port the game over to the PC side, so that you could do the level creator on the PC side. We did that. We've done work with Atari and we've done work with Midway, and so and right now we're on a couple of projects that I'm not allowed to. Excuse me, I'm not allowed to talk about who we're doing them for, but we are still working with a lot of the bigger companies, and that's what my company does.
One of these days, I hope that you get the chance to build a game from the ground up the way you want it. I know you've given me a number of really fascinating ideas over the years, but we'll see.
It'll be fun. I would love to be able to develop some of our own game ideas. And the thing is, there are a lot of people out there. I have to admit, there are a lot of people out there that think they have this crazy, awesome, just completely blow away everything else game idea. And I really don't want to burst any bubbles, but there are lots and lots of people who feel that they have those kinds of ideas. And most of the time, those ideas have some really cool things in them, but they don't have the meat. They're not fleshed out. They're not well developed. And so, usually people that come and present these types of game ideas, they say, well, this really cool thing and this really cool thing and this really cool thing. And then I ask them about, okay, what are the core game mechanics? How is the game going to work? What is the user interface going to be? What is the control scheme going to be? And usually what happens is people, they say, well, I don't know, because they haven't thought about those kinds of things. And so being in the game industry, you learn a lot. A lot of game development isn't about the cool stuff. It's about the user experience and making the user experience work well and be smooth. So if I am, as a game developer, if I am doing my job right, you probably won't notice what I've done. But if I don't do my job right, that's the first thing you're going to notice, and you're not going to want to play my game. So my job is to make sure you don't notice what I do.
Convenient.
Times Minion asks, what is the name of the third-party company? We are Escalation Studios in Dallas, Texas. All right. Do you want to? I'm sorry. I feel like I kind of derailed your podcast, Dr. Wolf. We got off the subject of MLP.
Well, we got through the big ideas that I wanted us to talk about, and we even expanded on certain characters here and there. So we've got more than enough MLP material to work with. And if people really wanted to know the answers to certain questions, that certainly works well for us. And now that I know that this live stream thing can work very nicely, I'd like to see whether we can do this more often and maybe do more of an official Q&A. Because, yeah, people are here, people are asking questions, and I think this is a very good way to get answers to them. But we'll see.
Indeed. So, again, I want to apologize to everyone. I know there were a lot of questions that were flashing by, and I tried to pick up some that I could. I want to apologize for those of you that we missed. I want to see if we are going to do an official Q&A session. I'd like to have some sort of a queue where we can start putting in questions and make sure that we're not missing questions, because I want to make sure that if there are good questions, I'm sure there are some good questions that came up that we completely missed in the chat window. I'd like to make sure that we don't miss those kinds of questions. So I'm open to suggestions on what we can do to make sure that we build up a queue of good questions so that we can go through them one by one and make sure they don't get missed.
We'll see. And maybe if we make this a more regular thing, I can actually get you to start watching the show. We'll see.
The quote that just came to my mind: "Until you have evidence, get off my back."
Mm-hmm. All righty.
I don't think you know that one.
It's not coming to mind.
It's Naked Gun.
I haven't seen that in forever. Probably not since the 90s.
That's probably why you didn't get that one.
All righty. Well,
at any rate,
thank you very kindly, Teric, for joining me this evening. I think I can be a little more relaxed when I'm talking to someone that I've known for the majority of my life. That's a definite plus. And
yes, that's true.
Even going back to some old quoting fests between the two of us, we may have to do more of those in the future. But I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast this evening, and hopefully everything's going to work out to transfer this over to YouTube. We'll see.
Yep, and thanks for having me aboard, Dr. Wolf. I always enjoy having these joint sessions with you. Even though I'm not so much of a brony as you are, I feel like I can at least contribute some of my own little tidbits of wisdom here and there.
You do very good at that.
All right. Good night, everybody. And if you could see me, you'd see me waving.
Right. And as per always, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Good night, everybody.